for progressive, open-minded people like you and me.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Welcome home, LA. We're all in this together.
Let's get it on.
It's KBLA Talk 1580, broadcasting from the heart of LA's Leimert Park. We've got a lot to talk about.
We're going to have to fight. We're going to have to struggle. We're going to have to struggle relentlessly to bring about some peace.
Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan. Chaka Khan, let me rock it, Chaka Khan. Let me rock it, that's all I wanna do. Chaka Khan, let me rock it, Chaka Khan. Let me rock it, let me feel for you. Chaka Khan, what you tell me what you wanna do? Do you feel for me the way I feel for you? Chaka Khan, let me tell you what I wanna do. I wanna love you, wanna hug you, wanna squeeze you too. And let me take it in my arms, let me feel you with my charm, Chaka. Cause you know that I'm the one to keep you warm, Chaka. I make it more than just a physical dream. I wanna rock you, Chaka, baby, cause you make me wanna scream. Let me rock it, rock it.
I'm Tavis Smiley. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Our phone number 1-800-920-1580, 1-800-920-1580. This is an easy question, Miles. So Chaka made this song famous, but you know who song it is, right?
The purple one.
There you go, the purple one, Prince, exactly. Just checking Miles' music knowledge. He's pretty good at these things. Today is Chaka Khan's 70th birthday. If you're listening, Chaka, we love you. I do love Chaka. I've known her for years, and we've hung out and traveled together around the world and done some things together. So today is Chaka's 70th birthday. Yesterday, we celebrated the birthday of Stephanie Mills. So two amazing artists. Who knew? Birthdays back to back. Yesterday, we played the music of Stephanie Mills through our 3-hour program. And for the rest of the way, we'll play some music from Chaka Khan, who celebrates today her 70th natal day. I should also mention today is also the birthday, I believe, of Vanessa Bell Calloway, the actress. Vanessa is a dear friend of ours, supporter of this station. Happy birthday, Vanessa Bell Calloway. And who else? Deborah Shaw Cole, our CFO, the CFO of this company, Deborah Shaw Cole, celebrating her birthday today. I know she's only 28. So anyway, happy birthday, Deborah Shaw, if you are listening. So a lot of birthdays of people that we know, love, and respect, and appreciate their work and witness. So once again, happy 70th birthday to Chaka Khan, and we'll play some more of her stuff as we move through the second 2 hours of our 3-hour program today. In this hour, why does race seem to color almost every feature of our moral and political universe? Why does a perpetual cycle of slavery in all its political, intellectual, and cultural forms continue to define the black experience? Why are we defined in that way? And why is anti-black violence such a predominant feature not only in this country, but indeed around the world? And finally, what if the problem of racism has no solution? You've heard me say many times around here that I regard racism as perhaps the most intractable issue in the nation. But what if the issue, the problem of racism, has no solution? In this hour, the argument of Afro-pessimism with Dr. Frank B. Wilderson III, who I'm delighted to have on this program for the hour. Dr. Wilderson, how are you, sir?
I'm doing just great, Tavis. Glad to be here. I've always watched you when you were a television show, and happy to be on your radio show.
You're kind to say that. I appreciate it. I'm honored to have you on. I followed your work as well, so it's one big mutual admiration society, I suspect. We'll set that aside for the hour, though, and interrogate these issues. And I'm delighted to have you on. Let me just start with this. We'll get into the particulars, obviously, as we move through the hour. But just on the broad, in the broad scheme of things, what about that what-if question? What about that what-if question? What if the problem of racism has no solution? Can you just kind of indulge me on the notion of the question to begin with, and then we'll work our way into the answers?
How do you mean, what if it doesn't have a solution? Maybe I should ask you that.
Yeah. Racism, as I said a moment ago, to my mind, is the most intractable issue in the country. And we'll pivot our way into this notion of Afro-pessimism, as you call it, and get you to define that. But what if we're living in a country, what if we're living in a world where this issue that so constricts us in so many ways, Johnny Cochran once said that racism is a part of everything in America. What if there really is no solution to that problem? How do I process that for the rest of my life and my children and my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, that there just isn't a solution to this conundrum?
That's a hard question to answer, but let me not answer it, but address it in this way. What we're saying, the people who theorize through Afro-pessimism, is that number one, anti-blackness and white supremacy are two distinct modes of subjugation. And anti-blackness is a kind of necessary balm, BALM,
sure,
for all non-black people to find coherence in their own existence. So, in other words, anti-blackness is necessary, and the violence of anti-blackness is a ritualistic form of therapy for the rest of the world, which is very different than the violence against immigration or non-black women or the non-black working class. And so, on the one hand, we would say that it is intractable and there's no solution, but specifically, there's no solution that can be thought through in this current episteme, meaning the dome of all that can be thought or done. Mm-hmm. Now, epistemes can be destroyed. As we know, the episteme of feudalism was destroyed, and we got the new episteme of capitalism. But when you're in an episteme, and we're now globally, and I would say we've been globally in the episteme, which is founded on, or anti-blackness is foundational to this episteme of what can be thought and what can be imagined and what can be done. We've been in that at least since 625 AD. And so it's not that there cannot be a world without anti-blackness, because at one point there was a world without anti-blackness before blackness existed as a paradigm, as a paradigmatic position. But what we mean is that when you try to actually write a sentence about what that world would look like or how to solve the problem of anti-blackness, which is very different than writing a sentence about how to solve the problem of white supremacy, which is what non-black people of color experience. When you try to write that sentence, what happens is that you end up not taking on the full extent, the full comprehension of what anti-blackness means, and you end up addressing specific things that happen to black people, which also happen to other people. So the end of an anti-black world can occur because it wasn't always here, but it's not like you can actually think that through in this moment. Struggle will help, but we have to understand what anti-blackness means. It means that it's an ensemble of violent rituals and a psychic dynamic, as Frantz Fanon would put it, in which blackness, or the imago, the image of the black, becomes available for everybody's psyche to solve whatever problems they have, to be a foil against which they can know themselves to be alive. What that means is that blackness gives life to the rest of the world in the way that death as a meaning gives a meaning to life, or cat gives a meaning to dog. Blackness is the opposite of what it means to exist as a relational being. And we get kept there through forms of violence which come to us without contingency. Without us to have transgressed. Sure. We are transgressive in our body. And that's why we can struggle through it, but we cannot think of what that means on the other side. It is the life breath of everyone else.
All right, it's going to be a rich hour. I can see already. There's a lot to unpack in this hour. For all that he said, in answer to that one question, which it gives us a lot to build on and to work with and to interrogate, obviously. I am stuck on this one phrase, which we're going to come to in just a moment when we come forward. He defines anti-blackness, as you heard, as a ritualistic form of therapy for the world. That hit me. That anti-blackness, as Dr. Wilderson puts it, is a ritualistic form of therapy for the world. Yeah, we're going to unpack that when we come forward. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Our Weekly Los Angeles is the largest audited black newspaper in the state of California with a distribution of over 50,000 copies weekly. Pick up a copy every Thursday to get the latest news on African American communities of LA. You can also keep up with what's going on in Los Angeles and surrounding cities by going to www.ourweekly.com. The Our Weekly website is updated daily with the current news about us and for us. For your advertising needs, Our Weekly offers economical advertising packages to fit your budget. Feel free to call Our Weekly Los Angeles at 323-905-1300 or visit the website at www.ourweekly.com. Our Weekly Los Angeles, reporting news that matters to you.
Let the law office of Jay Blacknell take the worry and stress out of your case. We support the right to a fair trial for Los Angeles Council member Mark Willie Thomas. If you are facing a criminal or civil rights matter, please give us a call, 310-469-9117.
It's game day at Jim's house, and the spread is impressive.
Mike's already done some damage with the hot wings, and now he's dropping back and going deep for another slice of pizza.
I sure hope he brought the Pepto.
Mike knows that Pepto-Bismol provides fast 5-symptom relief from unexpected stomach upsets. He's no rookie.
The way he's throwing back those nachos, he's the GOAT.
Be ready for game day with Pepto-Bismol.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Hi. Who's this?
Buzz. He appears whenever you eat Honey Nut Cheerios.
Like a genie?
Sure.
Ooh, does he grant wishes? I wish I lived in a giant boot. No, I wish I could swim with a humpback whale. No.
I can grant you a delicious bowl of Honey Nut Cheerios, which can help lower cholesterol as part of a heart-healthy diet.
Ooh, with heart shapes, too.
Happy heart-shaped Cheerios are back for a limited time. Pick up a box of Honey Nut Cheerios at your local store for an easy, delicious, and heart-healthy start to your day.
Let's unpack a little bit more with Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues right now.
I'm Tavis Smiley. You're tuned in to KBLA Talk 1580, and we're glad about it. Our phone number, 1-800-920-1580. 1-800-920-1580. And because we're so gifted and talented, we can do two things at once around here. We can celebrate the 70th natal day of Chaka Khan and have a conversation about Afro-pessimism all at the same time. So we're playing throughout today's program some of the music of Chaka Khan as she celebrates again her 70th birthday. Happy birthday, Chaka Khan. Our guest in this hour, though, is Dr. Frank B. Wooderson III. And we're talking about this term, this notion, as he has coined it, Afro-pessimism. Afro-pessimism. And he has already got our brains turning with a number of things he said, which I want to interrogate here as we move forward. But I want to start with this. He was talking a moment ago, as you heard, about anti-blackness and said, in fact, boldly and directly, that anti-blackness is a ritualistic form of therapy for many around the globe. A ritualistic form of therapy. I'm trying to wrap my brain around that, and I want you to spend some time, Dr. Wooderson, unpacking that formulation for me, sir. Take it away.
Okay. First thing I want to say is also I share your birthday celebration of Chaka Khan. My dad was on sabbatical in Chicago back in 1969, and when I was in high school. And my mother was doing her research for a PhD, and I so wanted to go to Kenwood School where Chaka Khan was.
That's a great story. Even scholars love Chaka Khan. I love it, man. She's
I came up with Chaka Khan.
Yeah, I was. Let me just pause for a second. We'll come back to anti-blackness in a second. Let's talk about Chaka Khan for a second. I've said many times. As a matter of fact, I was at dinner the other night with some friends, and we were talking about this. And there were a number of us. People were in town. There was a big event happening in L.A. A number of folk were in town, friends of mine from different places. So we all got together for dinner one night. So at the table, you got L.A., you got New York, you got Chicago, a few other places represented at the dinner table. And we got into a conversation about music, as we tend to do. And we just started, bragging about our various cities and who hails from our city. And Chicago just ran away with it. I mean, when you start thinking of all the great artists who hail from the city of Chicago, one of my favorite American cities. I mean, Chalk is just one on the list. So I revel in your story about being in Chicago when Chaka was on her way up, and she's just all that and then some. Anyway, Miles, as a matter of fact, while we're at it, I'm gonna put a request in. I rarely do this. I'm gonna put a request in. We can get to it after news, traffic, and sports. Chaka's cover of "Gotta Be There" by the Jackson 5. If you've never heard Chaka's cover of "Gotta Be There," and push me into it just a little bit, Miles. Push me into it just a little bit. But when we come forward in this hour, if you've never heard her cover of "Gotta Be There," oh, Lord Jesus, you're going to hear it today. Anyway, we'll play Chaka for the next couple of hours. Right now, I want to get back to Dr. Wilderson and this notion of anti-blackness as a ritualistic form of therapy. Dr. Wilderson, take it away, sir.
Okay, and the one thing I want to say is that a lot of this for the lay public is comes out in my book, Afro-Pessimism. And, I'm doing my own work, but there's also the work of many, many scholars who are involved in this. And at the back of the book, there's notes on the people I quote. And so, people should realize that. The second thing is Afro-Pessimism is not an emotional disposition. It doesn't mean sadness. What Afro-pessimism means, for those of us who began to theorize this and came up with the term, it was actually given to us by Saidiya Hartman, who was my advisor on my dissertation, is that we're pessimistic about theories of economic deprivation or theories that come out of feminism to adequately explain Black suffering. So we've written a whole lot of very highly abstract critical theory texts which critique the notion that Black people suffer through being poor, essentially, because we do. But there's a way in which a Black man driving a Bentley or a Black woman who's a billionaire suffers in the same way as a Black sharecropper. And that's precisely what our work has tried to pinpoint. And it comes full circle to your question. What we're trying to say is that Blackness exists in the collective unconscious as a foil against which anyone, no matter how oppressed they are, can know themselves to be at least human. I could be a Native American, a form of degraded humanity, or a Latinx person trying to get across Trump's wall, a form of degraded humanity, but I'm still a member of humanity because humanity is defined in contradistinction to slaveness, to the Black. And there's a highly sophisticated and very complicated ways in which we work this through psychoanalysis, but I won't get into all that here. The point being is that in order for that dichotomy to be maintained, and this dichotomy is maintained everywhere in the world that I have been. I've been most places in the world except for Asia. But in my research and with graduate students I know it exists in Asia also, that to know oneself unconsciously, semi-consciously, and consciously as a relational being, to know that I am a member of a community. If all the things that make that possible are destroyed through, say, colonialism or occupation, I still have this kernel of knowledge that I exist as a human and as a relational being because I exist as a non-Black. In order for that dichotomy to be maintained, Blackness must experience forms of accumulation and egregious violence that also come to other people. But Blackness must experience this in a way that we theorize this without contingency. In other words, Black people must be available for police shootings, for lynching, for all sorts of minor microaggressions and macroaggressions based upon what Fanon calls the epidermal schema, our skin, not based upon what we do. We are the one group of sentient beings in the world who are transgressive in our bodies, not transgressive in our actions. And that dichotomy has to be maintained through ritualistic violence that then acts as a solvent, a bomb for everyone else to know, okay, that could happen to me.
Yeah.
But I would have to transgress.
Yeah. No, this is getting rich, as I promised it would. So let me just a quick follow up on that, and then we're gonna move. You keep every time you say something, my mind is just I'm racing trying to keep up with you. So in what ways then is anti-blackness a therapy? I want to hone in just on that word. You called it a ritualistic form of therapy. In what ways is for some people anti-blackness a therapy? Why that word?
Yes, because one who is not black understands that when they see something like George Floyd or Sandra Bland, that the murder of George Floyd, the murder of Sandra Bland, they could then understand at some level, for a Southern white segregationist, who's very honest about his, her, their feelings, it would be at a very conscious level. For a Northern liberal, it would be at a very unconscious and embarrassing level. They understand that I am safe. I can be injured because the black cannot be injured. That happened to someone, but no injury happened. And this goes back. This is the nature of what it means to be a slave, as Saidiya Hartman has pointed out in her work on black women and rape. When black women during the slavery went to have rape adjudicated, the judge would say, "Look, I understand that you were sexually violated. However, you do not exist as a being who embodies consent. Therefore, there was no injury. What are you? You are an extension of the master's prerogative. You are like a tool or a horse. So if you could be injured, then you would be a subject worthy of litigation." And I think that what we're trying to say is that dichotomy between those people who can be injured, have their consent violated, and black people who can experience violence but no injury occurs, that is the bomb. That is the psychic ritual that happens and must continuously happen, or else we'd have a crisis in the way the order of the world exists today.
I'm going to be stuck on that point the rest of the day. That just being reminded, as Professor Dr. Woodison does in this moment, reminding us that there was a point in time in this country where there were jurists who literally advanced the argument in courtrooms that he just laid out, that you can't be injured because you don't embody the humanness. To his point, you're like a horse or some kind of or tool to be used out in the fields. You cannot be injured because you do not embody the humanness to be injured, because you are an extension of the property of the master. That argument was literally advanced as underpinning decisions made in courts all across this country when black women went into courtrooms to try to get some modicum of justice for being raped. That was the argument that was advanced, and I'm just pausing there for a second because that's just something to think about, that's the argument that judges actually advanced in not dealing with the rape of black women. I'm sorry, go ahead. You want to say something?
And Tavis, yes, I tell my students all the time, if we lived in the 19th century, I would be out of a job.
Yeah. So would I. That makes two of us.
I mean, people said what they thought. And, Justice Taney in the Dred Scott decision, the 250-page decision, in the middle of it, he goes like this. I'll try to be very brief. He says, look, I'm returning Dred Scott to slavery, not because I'm siding with the lower court that said the master did not give him freedom. And I'm certainly not siding with one of the other lower courts who said he made it to Minnesota and therefore he's free. What I'm trying to tell you people, this is what's in jurisprudential law is called a Herculean opinion. He said, I am trying to explain to you that Dred Scott should never have been heard because he is a sentient being that comes from a place where there is no community called Africa. There's a very big difference, he writes, between Dred Scott and a Native American. A Native American is a form of degraded humanity who we occupy and subjugate, but we are trying to change and I'm bastardizing his words, but whiten to the point where they can become full citizens. Scott is the anti-citizen. He is the non-being. Where I'm not siding with the lower courts who sent him back to slavery because the master didn't set him free. In fact, I'm chastising the lower courts for hearing him in court at all. He is not a subject of political community like the Native Americans. He is our thing.
He is our thing.
And this is what we're trying to say is that this very straightforward, what in psychoanalysis is called preconscious articulation of speech, is the foundation of the unconscious world of thought in the 21st century. It's just that so many people are embarrassed to articulate it, but it operates nonetheless.
So I'm looking at my clock here. I've got news, traffic, and sports in 60 seconds. Let me tell you where I want to go when we come forward. Since we're talking about black suffering writ large, I believe that it is the telling of truth that allows the suffering to speak. When we tell the truth, then the suffering can be heard. And when we don't tell the truth, then the suffering gets rendered invisible, right? So I want to talk about black suffering when we come forward, and particularly this point you made a moment ago, that we are transgressive not because of our actions, but because of these bodies that we inhabit that have melanin in our skin. What am I to do with that? And again, I'm not naive in raising this, but I want to follow you on it. What am I to do with the fact that my very presence, my very being is in and of itself transgressive just because of the way I show up in the world physically, given this melanin that is in my pigmentation? Just my being, my looking that way on the surface makes me transgressive. That's a lot to process. When we come forward, we'll do that, process that, and a great deal more to get to in this hour as we talk about Afro-pessimism with our guest, our esteemed guest, Dr. Frank B. Wooderson III, who you're listening to right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
We may be LA's newest talk station, but when you're punching above your weight, it's not about whether you can throw a punch. Can you take a punch? We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. And we don't black down.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Lawyers on Capitol Hill are grilling the head of the social media app TikTok over the company's ties to China.
Mr. Chu, you are here because the American people need the truth about the threat TikTok poses to our national and personal security.
During a House committee hearing, Republican Kathy McMorris Rogers of Washington State said the app collects every data point imaginable from users and should be banned. Another attempt at limiting talks of racism is moving through the North Carolina legislature. The State House passed the bill along party lines yesterday that bans promotion of critical race theory, but it falls short of preventing a veto. One lawmaker says it prohibits schools from endorsing discriminatory concepts. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Good news, finally getting the all clear. Try to travel away from downtown up at Hollywood. We've had a tough drive. They had a wreck earlier on the 101 North around Highland. That has now been cleared from that right lane. As you get to Gower, it's busy. Seen a slow drive for Silver Lake, Atwater Village. It's a stalled big rig delaying us on that 5 south at Fletcher Drive. That is stuck in a center traffic lane right as you get to Los Feliz Boulevard. We are seeing the busy commute here. Still seeing that wreck in Glendale, the 134 West, right around Glendale Avenue. That's onto the right shoulder. And Linwood on the 105 East at Long Beach Boulevard. Earlier wreck to the right side here with a busy commute from at least the 110.
When you want the best deal on the best meal, choose Wendy's 2 for $6. Pick from Dave's Single, Spicy Chicken Sandwich, 10-piece Crispy Nugs, or a medium strawberry lemonade. Pair any 2 for just $6. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's 2 for $6.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers beat Phoenix by 11 last night. 3 players scored 25 or more. 27 for Anthony Davis, 26 for D'Angelo Russell. Austin Reeves had 25 and 11 assists. Clippers star Paul George has a sprained right knee. He'll be evaluated in 2 to 3 weeks. George is expected to miss the Clippers' final 9 games of the regular season. The NCAA tournament resumes tonight. UCLA is a 2-point favorite over Gonzaga in the West Regional semifinal in Las Vegas. 6:45 tip-off on CBS. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by Original Taco Pete.
It's Aaron from Original Taco Pete. Let us cater your March Madness munchies. Order with us at Original Taco Pete on Grubhub, Uber Eats, DoorDash, or stop into our Slauson and Crenshaw location. We'll feed you soon.
I'm young, gifted, and black. At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation in scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a whole lot to talk about.
Hi, Maisha Cairo here, KBLA, live at Chase Bank on Crenshaw and Vernon for the In This Together tour with female business owners, a day of empowerment, community panels, and best of all, tips on building business from marketing to capital. Today, I was able to speak with Ola Wadibia, VP of Women on the Move. Hi, Ola. Tell me a bit about this initiative by JP Morgan Chase, founded in 2013.
Women on the Move is a center of excellence at JP Morgan Chase in our global DEI organization, where we really focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. What's really awesome about Chase's approach is that all of our centers of excellence, and there are 7 of them, focus on different demographic groups, is that we're really focusing on what's happening internally in the firm and also what's happening out in community. So really, Women on the Move is really focused on thinking about how do we help advance women professionally and personally.
I love it. So tell me about this beautifully updated banking branch here on Crenshaw.
That was really important. A part of our racial equity commitment was to build in place for Chase. So being able to revamp this beautiful space, to be able to welcome community members, today anyone, nonprofit, organization, school can actually do events in our community center that we're sitting in here for free. Yes, people come inside, grab a coffee, use the Wi-Fi. It's free.
Yes, Maisha Cairo in the community for KBLA with JP Morgan Chase.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Tavis Smiley, and that's Shaka Khan. Hate to step on her, but the show must go on. She kills that track. If you've never heard it, just Google it. Gotta Be There, of course, by the Jackson 5. But her cover on it is absolutely phenomenal. While we playing Shaka, in case you've just tuned in, today is Shaka's 70th birthday. And so we are... Give me that note, Miles. Turn it up. Turn it up. Yeah, you can't fade her. Chicago's own Chaka Khan celebrating today her 70th birthday. Our guest in this hour, Dr. Frank B. Wooderson III, was joking earlier. Well, he wasn't joking. He was serious. He was growing up in Chicago with Chaka Khan. At the time, she was not Chaka Khan at that time. She was Yvette back then. Yeah, she was Yvette.
Yvette. But what people don't know, but a lot of people don't know is that the time, she's 3 years older than me, and she was part of a political milieu.
Yes.
I was only in Chicago for about 4 months, but the milieu was that she was part of the Panthers at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think her that uncompromising force that you feel coming through her music really goes back in part to her activism and the way she struggled.
No, that's a powerful, powerful point. I love when I have guests he's a scholar, so he knows a little bit of everything, but I love how he's just waxing poetic about the backstory of Chaka Khan, which is just an amazing, amazing thing to be in dialogue with somebody who loves music the way I do and respects Chaka's gift. So happy birthday, Chaka Khan. Chaka Khan, as brilliant and as gifted as she is no different than Dr. Frank B. Wooderson III, as we're talking about his book and his work around Afro-pessimism. She's no different than Dr. Wooderson or yours truly in that when she shows up, when she occupies space, wherever that might be, on a stage or any place else, her very presence is transgressive. The presence of her body in that space is transgressive, not because of her actions, but simply because of the way she shows up, the melanin in her skin. And that's a lot to navigate. And I think our white brothers and sisters don't often get that, Dr. Wooderson, that we are transgressive again, as you put it, not because of our actions, but because of our very presence, our very existence. But that's a lot to deal with.
It is. Even for me, or especially for me. I don't know. I mean, I think that when I got out of college, I was a stockbroker for 8 years. And I figured that if I was still a stockbroker today and not an intellectual, I would be making about $350,000 a year, which I don't make anywhere near.
Mm-hmm.
But I would not have the power of understanding or possess the power to pose the question from a Black perspective in these multicultural spaces. And I think that even though I unconsciously will pump myself up, as I drive around in my nice car in Orange County, and I know that I'm a chancellor's professor, and there's only 50 out of 3,000 at UC Irvine, and I have this and that and the other, and then something happens, and I realize, oh no, that's not who I am, as Fanon has pointed out in Black Skin, White Mask. That is not who I am to the world. To the world, I am a stimulus to anxiety. I am a phobic object. And so on the one hand, there's two things that can happen with that. And one is that you can just kind of sink into despair. And sometimes it even brings about suicide. And often enough, because an anti-Black unconscious does not just live out there, it lives within us as well. We understand ourselves to be a threat to ourselves. And as I write rather jokingly in my book, Afro-Pessimism, what is the cardinal rule of Negro diplomacy? It is make them feel safe.
Oh, yeah.
So the more white-collar we become, the more we move through the world trying to enter into the room, like, how can I make them feel safe?
Oh, yes.
But I think what Afro-Pessimism does as a theory and a set of texts is beginning to help people embrace something that they are a threat to me, damn it. I am not going to make them feel safe. And that is what I mean by the power to pose the question, because even in radical multiracial spaces, I did a lot of organizing in the Bay Area, and I was the second Black person to hold elected office in the African National Congress, which is a multiracial organization under Mandela in South Africa. I could see in both spaces that anytime someone from the townships in South Africa or a black person from Bayview Hunters Point in the north part of California would bring up something in these spaces that pointed to a form of oppression, a form of violence that they were experiencing, which was not analogous to the way in which brown people were experiencing it, the organization would shut that down and say, you're playing oppression Olympics, or can we find a common ground here? And I think what Afro-pessimism has done, because I've been giving Afro-pessimist workshops to Black Lives Matter organizations and the Movement for Black Lives in unknown places like, unusual places like Vienna and Berlin and London, as well as in the United States, Black people have begun to understand that the very essence of anti-Blackness is different than the very essence of white supremacy, and we demand to be heard as on that subject if you're truly a comrade of ours. Yeah. And so it doesn't solve the problem, but it you know, as Fanon writes in Black Skin, White Mask in his chapter, The Negro and Psychopathology, he says, as a phobic object, the Jew stimulates anxiety based upon the ideas that the anti-Semitic person thinks the Jew is going to bring into the world and threaten. So I, Fanon, stimulate anxiety by just my melanin walking into the room. And also, as an image, I can be harnessed and grabbed by any other person to become the destination of their aggression when they are really upset with something in their own world or in their own family. I exist as that object where aggressivity can just go to. This is what I meant by anti-Black violence is the psychic bomb that heals everyone else's psyche. And we've known this all along, but I think what Afro-pessimism has done, a series of texts and workshops, is it has allowed people who are activists and people who are not activists to demand that the conversation happen on Black suffering terms, not simply on the terms of other people.
No, when we come forward, I want to come to that issue. I said minutes ago, that I believe that it's the telling of truth that allows the suffering to speak, and if the suffering if there's no truth that's being told, then that suffering gets rendered invisible. And I want to ask Dr. Wooderson whether he thinks that in this moment in late modernity, that the suffering of Black people is, in fact, being rendered invisible. I know you're thinking George Floyd video. I know you're thinking any number of other videos that we've seen. But even in light of all that, those are specific examples, Tyree Nichols, etc. But I wonder writ large whether or not he thinks that the suffering of Black people is, in fact, being rendered invisible. And I'm still noodling his notion of a moment ago, shared, that you heard and felt as I heard and felt it. And that is this preoccupation, this necessity, pick your word, that many of us feel and have when we enter spaces with our white brothers and sisters to make them feel safe and comfortable. That's a serious thing to navigate, always having to be on your best behavior, whatever that means, to make them feel safe and comfortable. We'll continue with Dr. Frank B. Wooderson III when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest spot.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
The bounce is back.
KBLA Talk 1580 celebrates Women's History Month, sponsored by Walmart. As we celebrate Women's History Month this month, KBLA Talk 1580 would like to spotlight women leaders in our community who are creating positive change. If you or someone you know is making a difference in your community, please nominate them with a 50-word or less post on why you feel they should be included in the KBLA Women's Series, sponsored by Walmart. These women leaders will be featured on KBLA, interviewed on KBLA, and participate in a panel discussion hosted by Areva Martin in real time. Visit the KBLA app or log on to KBLA1580.com to nominate a woman in your community that is creating positive change. This has been a KBLA Talk 1580 community call to action.
You know that Big Bargain detergent jug is 85% water, right?
85% water? I thought I was getting a better deal because it's so big.
If you want a better clean, Tide Pods are only 12% water. The rest is pure, concentrated cleaning ingredients. Don't pay for water, pay for clean.
Save $10 when you spend $30 on Tide and Downy. Water content based on the leading bargain liquid detergent. Must buy at least one participating Tide or Dreft detergent item, plus at least one participating Downy and or Bounce scent booster, liquid fabric softener, or dryer sheets. Prepaid card by mail. Visit pglaundryrebate.com for terms and conditions.
KBLA 1580 Talk Radio congratulates Sal's Gumbo Shack for this Women's History Month. Surviving the pandemic and social unrest, Sal's Gumbo Shack continued to hold the community up with great food to all that came through the doors. Are you ready for the best gumbo in town? The best po' boy you've had? Sal's Gumbo Shack. We bring the bayou to you with real authentic soul food. Mama and Granny's recipes made with real butter, real love, real everything. Also introducing a healthy option from our jackfruit selection. And there's more. Mouth-watering desserts, peach cobbler, banana pudding, red and blue velvet cake, 7-Up pound cake, homemade with lots of love. To order, call 562-423-2113. That's 562-423-2113. Sal's is also providing training and employment to those serious about a career in the food industry and the opportunity to perhaps own your own Sal's Gumbo Shack one day. Visit salsgumboshack.com or stop by either locations, Bixby Knolls or Long Beach Boulevard. Sal's Gumbo Shack.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
You do indeed belong here, and I'm glad to have you here in this hour, watching our time, which is getting away from me. Let me come to two things right quick. Given the time constraints, our guest is Dr. Frank B. Wilson III, talking about his work and his text by the same name, Afro-Pessimism. I wonder, Dr. Wilson, whether or not you think in this moment, writ large, the suffering of black people, black suffering, is being rendered invisible.
Yes, I think that there are two kinds of things happening simultaneously. Imagine what you're talking about, which is the river above ground. And, you know, what that river is saying to us, the media images and everything that's going on is that, you know, we have arrived, we had a black president, you need to stop complaining. It's really not as bad as you think it is. And I, unfortunately, but the Democratic Party is playing into that because they're not speaking to us until they need our vote at election time. Other than that, there's other times they're speaking to the Republican Party, trying to, out patriotism each other, or out fiscal responsibility each other, or out Americanize each other. So that, I think, on the surface, it's rather depressing in the way that you're talking about. But there's something that people aren't actually noting or putting their finger on so much, and that is there's an underground river in which black people all over the world are coming together to theorize, not just to say or articulate our suffering, but to actually theorize what that means and how it is structurally different than the suffering of other oppressed people. And that has spread like wildfire in the past 10 years. And so that's not getting a lot of press, but one of the symptoms of that is the ways in which we as Afro-pessimist scholars have been asked, as I said earlier, to do all of these highly, highly theoretical workshops for black movement organizations. I've been to Cape Town, to Johannesburg, to all these different places by people who are studying our highly dense theoretical texts and asking, how do we understand this? And then taking it upon themselves to figure out, well, what does it mean for our struggle? That's not a media event, but it's spreading like wildfire. Yeah. The other symptom is that when jobs are posted in the Chronicle of Higher Education for the academic world, more and more what you're seeing is that one of the requests is that someone be able to teach Afro-pessimism. That didn't happen 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. So this is going to have a major, major effect and I think a positive one, once it becomes something that the mainstream media cannot ignore.
Yeah. In our remaining moments with Dr. Frank B. Wilson III, I want to come to this other issue right quick here about this penchant that many of us feel when we are in certain spaces, particularly if we are, how might I put it, if we are lured by the normative white gaze, this penchant that we feel to make them feel safe and comfortable. We'll talk about that in a moment with Frank B. Wilson III on KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
California is a great place to live and work, but those aren't easy things to do for students also going to college. That's why the state created the Californians for All College Corps, a way for students to build skills and help others while earning up to $10,000 for school. Commit to serve your community and we'll help you pay for college. Spots will fill up fast, so learn more and apply today at www.cacollegecorps.com. That's www.cacollegecorps.com. California is a great place to live and work, but those aren't easy things to do for students also going to college. That's why the state created the Californians for All College Corps, a way for students to build skills and help others while earning up to $10,000 for school. Commit to serve your community and we'll help you pay for college. Spots will fill up fast, so learn more and apply today at www.cacollegecorps.com. That's www.cacollegecorps.com.
Congratulations to Revolution Company for being this week's winner of KBLA's Office of the Week. Log on to KBLA1580.com to enter your office to win lunch for 10, delivered by John O'Groats Family Restaurant.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action is the youth component of the impactful CBO, known as the Community Coalition. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action has chapters at almost every South LA high school. Say Yeah, as they are popularly known, is located at 80th and Vermont, but serves young people all over South LA. Under the COCO umbrella, they train youth organizers, help underserved scholars prepare for college, and work with students to help them gain admission to top universities. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action fosters teen activism, where young people have led campaigns moving tens of millions of dollars to South LA schools and forcing officials to make AP classes available to students in under-resourced institutions. SCES scholars have taken part in the March on Washington, been published in major news outlets, and been elected to city council. Long before she was mayor, Karen Bass started the program when she founded the Community Coalition. To donate, volunteer, or enroll a student in South Central Youth Empowered Through Action, please visit cocsouthla.org. cocsouthla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Conversations that matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're tuned in to Dr. Frank B. Wilson III of University of Irvine in Southern California. In this hour, have been talking about Afro-pessimism, his work and his text by the same name. He's the Chancellor's Professor of African American Studies at UC Irvine. In the 3.5 minutes I have left here, Dr. Wooderson, I want to circle back to that notion you raised earlier, talking about Afro-pessimism, of this need, this penchant that many of us feel in certain spaces to make others, feel safe and comfortable. I want to close with you expressing a bit more on that note.
Well, in Black Skin, White Mask, Fanon has this interesting phrase. He says, I fear the fear of the world once the world comes to know me. And I think that in some way, whenever we go into a store, whenever we go into a meeting, in some configuration that is there in our minds. And my book is part memoir and part theory. Mm-hmm. And in the memoir part, I talk about the time in my 20s and 30s when I was a stockbroker, and the thing that I was developing an ulcer that was going to really eat a hold of my stomach. And what I realized looking back on it now is that every time I had to meet someone, I never wanted to meet white people to have them part with their money in person, which was a necessary thing to do. I always wanted to do it over the telephone and put on my whitest voice to make sure that they didn't know, Because when I met them in person, it was always like, am I going to be too black? Are they going to want to invest this $100,000? What's going to happen, And so I think that now, as I have a lot less money, but a greater understanding, it's not that has left me. It means that I know that what occupies my mind is this question: how does it feel, as Du Bois put it? How does it feel, as we put to Du Bois? How does it feel to be a problem? And rather than fixing that intuitively for their benefit, I can then ask myself, well, how can I just relax and be me in this moment? Now, not everyone has the luxury of doing that. I mean, academics have more luxury than financial corporate people. But I think that understanding this can help you. Other than that, it's not something that's just going to go away. It's the whole dynamic of the world depends upon it.
Yeah. Here's my exit question with 90 seconds to go. You think it's possible that at some point in the future, way out there, that the black experience in America will not be defined through the prism of race, or is that a forever reality?
No, because I believe that can happen, but I believe if that happens, it will not be America. America is organically anti-black.
Organically anti-black.
Yeah.
Wow.
If we had another hour, we could talk about that. But.
Well, we will have another hour. It won't be today. It won't be today, but there will be another hour. And when we get to the other hour down the road, speaking of the future, we'll talk about why and the ways in which you think America is organically anti-black. And I also want to hear the story, which, again, you cover in your book. We didn't get to it in this hour, but in our next hour, we'll talk about that journey as a black man from stockbroker to scholar. I am fascinated by that journey. From stockbroker to scholar. So, JD, make sure we get Dr. Wooderson back on in the not-too-distant future to continue this conversation. For now, Frank Wooderson, thank you for your time, sir. We'll do it again, I promise.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful. I've always wanted to be talking with you sometime.
I am honored to have finally made that happen for both of us. I thank you, sir. Hour 3 of Tavis Smiley, after news, traffic, and sports on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.